with fire work for you and your home.
Work with the chimney and installation experts. They not only install, but will guide you if you want to install yourself. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood, gas, and electric units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, out of the ordinary products and services.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 39. Tonight, rain with a low around 35. And Friday, rain and snow with a high around 41. Discover the magic of Crooner's Supper Club. From the incredible shows to the cozy ambiance of Maggie's Lounge, there's no better place to spend an evening with friends, family, or that special someone. Crooner's Supper Club is located off Moore Lake and Highway 65. More at croonersloungemn.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show for your Thursday. Matt and Brett here. Baseball starts in Kansas City for the Twins this afternoon. I like the lineup. I like Gallo at first and Miranda at third.
Certainly a deeper team than what they had last year.
Indeed. Can't deny that. It's apparently going to be a mess of weather here for the next 2 days. I'll get to all that. This should be illegal to have this much stuff in a show. I got this state auditor, Julie Blaha, joins us here in about a half an hour. Beginning of next hour, Ross Standheim from MJSB Justice is going to join us. We're going to talk about non-compete orders. But joining us to start off the show right now is the former Democratic Senate leader and now the current board member for Fair Vote Minnesota. It's Melissa Franzen, who's kind enough today to talk about Fair Vote Minnesota and the work to try to pass ranked choice voting statewide in 2023. Melissa, thank you very much. I'm so used to saying Senator. Melissa, thank you very much. It's so nice to have you on the air.
Nice to finally be on. And I'm so glad you're on the road to recovery, Matt. Really excited that you're back on and that we are able to continue to chat about the issues of the day. I'm so glad you're doing well.
I know the last time you and I talked was the hurricane down in Puerto Rico. And those areas, we were talking about that was a few years ago, but it's nice to catch up with you again. You, of course, did not run for Senate again, but you have found a home with Fair Vote Minnesota.
Well, and I went back to my small business in public relations. So I'm one of the organizations that I decided to be on the board after taking a little break from politics is Fair Vote Minnesota, which is definitely in line with the work that we did in the legislature in terms of elections and being part of a group that's nonprofit, that's nonpartisan, and that works to strengthen our democracy through the education of ranked choice voting, which is what we're working on. We're trying to pass local and statewide ranked choice voting. For those who don't know, Fair Vote is the organization. There's a national organization as well. And they've been working really hard for the last decade and more to be more inclusive, democratic, and representative of our current political system. So ranked choice voting is the system that we're trying to pass, and I'd be happy to talk more about it as well.
Well, and I think once again, let's just go back to the very beginning here. Why don't you explain exactly what ranked choice voting is?
Sure. So it's also known as RCV, or sometimes called instant runoff voting. It's proven, it's common sense of reform we had already in some jurisdictions in Minnesota. So ranked choice voting right now works in Bloomington, St. Louis Park, Minnetonka, and Minneapolis and St. Paul. So those are the 5 jurisdictions that currently use ranked choice voting for local elections. So you basically vote ranking your candidates in order of preference, first choice, second choice, and so on. And if a candidate in a single seat receives the majority of the vote, which is 50% plus one of their first choice rankings in the first round, that candidate wins. However, if no candidate has the majority of the voters in that election cycle support, then the candidate with the fewest choice votes is defeated, and those ballots are now reallocated to count for those second choices. So it's a system where you want every vote counts, because if you're not someone's first choice, you can be their second choice and still win in that election, because it's really looking for the majority of those voters to get the support of the winning candidate. So it's really democratic, and we think it's a way to garner more inclusive democracy by not only having more people running for office because they feel like they can actually win if they're not necessarily engaged in political parties and that type of system. And some of these races are not partisan races, as we know, for school board, et cetera. But then you get the majority of the vote, and you also are able to build coalitions. To you're campaigning differently. You're campaigning not just to the base, but also to people who might be on the other side of the aisle. So you know, definitely want to have less polarization, breaking through gridlock, giving more choice and more power to that voter, making sure that every vote counts, and building that broad coalition to encourage positive campaigning and civility, not just during the election process, but also as an elected official. You are also going to be very much in tune with that broader coalition who helped you get there.
I've had people on with talked ranked choice voting before, and I'm going to ask you the same question I've asked them, and they've always answered it. But I want to make sure we do cover all our dot our I's, cross our T's sort of thing here. Explain to people why it's a better form of voting when their argument generally comes down is, oh, well, that was someone's second choice. Are we going to let second choices or third choices end up deciding this? Explain exactly why, it gives a better, more full representation of what really is on the voter's mind at the time of the vote.
Well, one thing is that in Minnesota, we have a primary system. So in local elections, you would actually eliminate that costly low turnout primary. So more people would be part of the election cycle versus if you go to a primary and then go to a general, you're losing out folks. I would say that the spoiler problem we saw in the last 2 cycles ago when we had folks running under a party that was not necessarily in line with a candidate, you lose those votes. You want those votes to count and not to feel like you're going to lose the vote by voting for someone who might not have a chance in voting and then spoil end up with a wrong candidate. So it has the opposite effect. If you don't have ranked choice voting, you can end up with a candidate that might not have the majority support. So I would say it's more inclusive. It promotes people to, build that coalition. And one example, which is really recent, is in Alaska. The congresswoman who won, Mary Peltola, who actually came to Minnesota to talk about how she wouldn't have been elected had it not been for ranked choice voting. She actually ran in a very wide spectrum of candidates, and she ran against Sarah Palin and other candidates, and she came as the coalition builder, and she's also the first Native Alaskan to win. So it was a great turnout in that case, because it brought a person of color who would otherwise have had a hard time getting through the number of elected or candidates in that particular race. So again, we think it's needed for being more cost effective to solve the spoiler problem, encourage positive campaigning, and bringing the best candidate that represents the majority of the people. So you might think it's a second choice. It's really the person who represents the majority of the people because it has majority support.
I think the most consummate example had been the 2018 election down in Senate District or House District 2, where Jason Lewis beat Angie Craig on that election. And then basically because there was a third party spoiler candidate, but I don't believe either one of them got more than 50% of the vote. And more than likely, if you would have taken that spoiler candidate out and divvied up the votes, it would probably been enough to basically put Angie Craig over the top. She eventually did win, and she's held that seat since. But that's the consummate example. But that does bring up one of the big conflicts for this getting passed is Republicans, who are, let's be honest, not in charge right now. The Republicans, they seem to not like this that much because it does do that. I mean, we've got a story today out of the Reformer where Republicans were basically giving money to a marijuana candidate just to make sure that they could stay on the ballot and try to play spoiler in the last election. I mean, they like to have this. This is something that has been alleged. There's been some evidence of it going on, that the Republicans like to run third-party candidates as spoilers. The reality is, I think that that's really, I think, what they want to kind of keep, but they kind of put forward this can't be trusted. How do you go out of the metro area where the cities that do have ranked choice voting now are, and go on out into rural communities and say, actually, this is a better way to do it?
Well, and there's instances, and again, it's nonpartisan. So there's instances in other parts of the country where Republicans do win under this system. So this system doesn't favor one party over the other. It favors the person who has the majority support of those voters. And I might add that Angie Craig is a big ranked choice voter supporter, maybe because she runs in a really tight district. So does Dean Phillips is another one. But these are districts where they actually need Republican support to win, to get them through the finish line, because they're very, very tight. Some of the people on the board of Fair Vote are board members like Kim Nelson, who came from corporate and business. Mike Osterholm, we all know him after the pandemic. We got to really know our most favored, if you will, scientists behind giving us advice. So we know that this is a system that gives more choice for anyone wanting to run under any party, quite frankly. But we also understand that having an endorsement from a particular major party is helpful in those statewide races where it is partisan. Again, this is a system that's being used right now in local races, and it can go all the way down to city council, how we see it in Minneapolis, but it could also be a school board can choose to do this as well. The part of the bill that we're helping to push this year is to allow for the local option, and then that is just what it means. Jurisdictions could opt to do ranked choice voting right away if they so choose. So we just think this is a better way of politics, because we've seen so much polarization and so much divisiveness. I mean, I've been in the legislature 10 years. I didn't run again, as you mentioned, and I've seen, even in those 10 years, how we've gone from working together and collaboratively to basically obstructionists. And that is the game that we're playing in right now in politics. And we want people who are doers, and we think ranked choice voter is going to self-select people who are actually going to be there for the right reasons and are going to do the work of the people that elected them, because they need that majority of support to win and continue to serve.
You are a saint for serving the last 10 years. I'll just be honest. You are a saint.
It was a privilege.
Yeah. All right. I want to bring up another thing, which I've from the last ranked choice voting that happened in Minneapolis. This is one of the things that actually there were people I know that were pro ranked choice voting that are a little more skeptical on it. And this was the don't rank Fry movement, where multiple candidates were trying to convince people to not rank the current mayor of the city. And well, frankly, it backfired. I mean, an argument, I can make the argument very clearly that, as opposed to telling people who not to vote for, why aren't you out there telling the people who to vote for? That's going to help your candidate a lot more in the long run. What about that element of it? You're going to have that, where you're going to have people that are trying to be, for lack of a better way to say it, plotting it to get certain people to lose. I know that's not necessarily the goal here, but how does Fair Vote look at that? Is that something that you appreciate because it still is people active in the political system?
Well, it didn't work out, as you mentioned, in Minneapolis. It actually backfired, and that's what we're seeing, that people can say, vote for me first and vote for me second. That's exactly what we heard from Mary Poltola when she did testify in the Senate. And you can go back to that Senate hearing where she talks about how she was in a parade, and at the end of the parade, and she's like the last one there, and saying, well, you like that candidate, but you vote for me second. People kind of get surprised that you still want their support, and that's the whole process of democracy. We want people to want to be engaged, to want to show up in the elections, and vote for the people they think are best suited to represent them. And that might be more than one person, but you might have a better inclination for one, but nonetheless, you don't want that vote to go to waste if you also think someone else can do the job. And that's what's the beautiful nature of ranked choice voting, that actually allows for people to be engaged, feel like their vote counts, it's not going to be wasted, and for candidates to tone it down and really work hard to build coalition and build a campaign that's inclusive. And it brings in more people of color. That is something that we've seen around in the polling, that we've seen around the country in the data. We also see that the majority of Minnesotans, there was a recent poll just done as well, do favor ranked choice voting as well, to the tune of 54%. So we see there's a lot of promise. It's not going to happen overnight. The bill that we have calls for a task force to put all the parameters in place. So we do this thoughtfully with all the right stakeholders, like you said, from rural communities to suburban, all over Minnesota, bring in the concerns, because we do not have centralized election systems like other states, we have to build this, and it has to be done right and taken thoughtfully. So we're bringing the stakeholders from the county level who do run our elections at the county local level. Those are the people who count those ballots, all the way to the state level, to make sure that we have the right mechanism and system in place to roll this out. Not tomorrow. It will take time. The bill right now looks for 2026. To make sure, and actually that was reformed. Now we're letting the task force decide when they think that would be the appropriate date. So we will do this thoughtfully. We'll take the time that it merits, but we want to make sure that this is something that Minnesotans can participate in as soon as we're able to.
In Alaska, you brought up the Alaska race, and one of the things that is a bit of a fear on the ranked choice voting is that already Republicans are saying, well, no one else runs. That, if this is the case, it's what's dangerous for us is if we have dissent within the Republican ranks. Now, they were just starting to see more Republicans run, which is kind of the whole goal here, is to get more people into the race. But there is will there be a pushback where the Republican Party in Alaska basically says, nope, there's only going to be one candidate because we don't want to lose this on a ranked choice voting thing. Is there a concern that if you do have a political party who basically is like, okay, no, we're in it to win it, we don't want to have this, that actually will stifle the amount of candidates that could possibly come in on a ballot?
Well, I can't speak to any party in particular. I'm not the chair of Alaska Republican or Democratic Party or Minnesota for that matter. What I can tell you is that people have the ability to participate in the democracy regardless of whether they're affiliated with a party or not. You have a lot of nonpartisan races already in our state. We want people to show up and raise their hand. We need better and well-rounded candidates to run, and not just do it for the sake of spoiling an election. We want people to serve who are ready to govern. So I would argue that it behooves us all to encourage more and not less people to take that step of public service. It's so important how our state is governed and how our society works. So we must encourage good candidates to run, and whether it's a partisan race or not, we want the best candidate to win who has the broad support of the majority.
You do have, I think, the best chance since the ranked choice voting became an issue to getting it passed this year. Obviously, it's a lot of work you guys are doing over the state capitol, right?
Yes. There's been there's a team that's doing the lobbying. I'm more on the board side and helping with strategy because I know the legislature, and I'm trying to bring that to the strategy of how to move this forward. But also there's a lot of education. There's a lot of new members who might have heard of ranked choice voting over the campaign, but still have questions, and we want to make sure that they're answered and that we take our time. That's why, again, the task force is in place. And it was actually an idea from the Secretary of State to put this in place. And we added that to the bill to ensure that we have the best model in the entire country for this to be implemented.
Yeah, our voting system in Minnesota is absolutely top notch, thanks to Steve Simon. So if he's endorsing it, I think we can go a long way with that. So if people want to find out more about ranked choice voting and Fair Vote Minnesota specifically, how should they find out more information about you?
Well, they can go to our websites, which is Fair Vote Minnesota, fairvotemn.org, fairvotemn.org. You'll see more information there. There's events happening across the state all the time, like rank your brews or you can rank anything, right? Rank your cheesecake, rank your pie. You can do it at home. It's really easy and simple. So there's events and more about how to get involved. So you can talk about it in your community. We can come to you. We'd be happy to present in local organization or your community so you can get more information and learn more about ranked choice voting and why it's so important for our democracy.
That's fairvotemn.org, fairvotemn.org, statewide. Go to that website. You can find out more information about that. Former Democratic Senate leader and now current board member for Fair Vote MN. It is Melissa Franson. Melissa, first of all, thank you very much for the kind words. It's very nice. You've been very supportive. I really appreciate that. All my best on this issue, and we'll hopefully see if we can get ranked choice voting passed in 2023.
Thank you, Matt. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Melissa Franson, kind enough to join us right now. Let's take a break. Come on back. I want to touch on a story I talked about with the Minnesota Reformer. I have to do that before we get to Julie Blaha because she plays a role in that story. You'll see. Just sit tight. Julie Blaha coming up in about 15 minutes. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Hi, everybody. This is Paul Metza, host of the Wall of Power Radio Hour, going on its 8th anniversary this year on AM 950. I want to tell you that I've got a great book out called Alphabet Jazz, Poetry, Prose, Stories, and Songs. It's writings I've done over the last 40 years. It's available on Amazon, or if you want to shop locally, go to the Electric Fetus, Crumpy's Bar Northeast, or High Fine Hair in Loring Park. I think you're going to enjoy it. Thanks so much.
Do you have a car you no longer need but don't want to jump through all the hoops to sell yourself? Rudy Luther Toyota can help with their We Buy program. It's really simple. Go to rudyluthertoyota.com, click on the We Buy link, type in some basic information, and Rudy Luther will get you an instant and accurate offer. Then set an appointment, and after a quick verification of the vehicle, Rudy Luther will set you up with your payment with a check on the spot in most cases. We Buy, it's that simple. For more details or to sell your vehicle, head to rudyluthertoyota.com. That's rudyluthertoyota.com.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. Our station is located on a marsh, and we do our best not to disturb that environment. So I was thrilled to discover Natural Lawn. Their safer products and soil tests ensure that your lawn will be healthy, lush, and green. I don't even have to worry about bringing my furry friend to the station, thanks to the great care from Natural Lawn. I highly recommend Natural Lawn to keep your lawn beautiful, healthy, without compromising safety and sustainability. More at naturalawn.com.
Cafe Latte offers made-from-scratch soups, salads, sandwiches, and mouth-watering desserts.
So come check out their pizza and wine bar, or get a treat from the bakery made fresh daily. Plus, you can still do online ordering and takeout, along with gift cards. Just go to cafelatte.com and choose from their ever-changing selection of award-winning salads, sandwiches, and soups. Cafe Latte is located off Victoria and Grand and online at cafelatte.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Once again, that's fairvotemn.org, fairvotemn.org if you'd like more information on ranked choice voting and, how you can get some, maybe come on out there, talk to your local organization about that. All right. So I mentioned this a little early, and this is kind of fair vote about why spoiler candidates, why Republicans, I think, are against ranked choice voting is because they like their spoiler candidates. And there's a story out of the Reformer, which is actually somewhat hard to believe, but it is I think it's hard to believe, but it's easy to believe at the same time. A bevy of Republicans made a flurry of donations to a pot party candidate last summer. The donations came days before a July deadline for Tim Davis of the Legal Marijuana Now Party to raise enough money to get a public subsidy for his state auditor campaign, giving him a cash infusion to potentially pull votes away from DFL state auditor Julie Blaha. Mary Franson, yes, not Melissa Franson. Melissa Franson used to be the senator out of the Edina area who is the minority leader. This is Mary Franson, the representative from Alexandria, who is just a delight. That's called sarcasm. She donated $50 to Davis, even though she voted against legalizing medicinal marijuana in 2014. She's opposed legalizing recreational marijuana. Once again, I want to make sure we say this for the record. Mary Franson gave $50 to the legalized dope candidate, and she is completely against legalizing dope. Oh, but she thinks we're all stupid. I really, that's clear. She, by the way, Mary Franson has a 0 rating from the National Organization of the Reform of Marijuana Laws and recently told constituents in an email, there'll be many public health and safety issues if Minnesota legalizes recreational marijuana. But she still gave $50 to the legalized dope auditor candidate. Campaign finance records show Republicans donated over $1,000 to the Davis campaign in the days leading up to the July 18th deadline for Davis to raise at least $6,000 to get a public subsidy. $1,000. GOP donations helped push him over the threshold to secure a nearly $29,000 public subsidy. The subsidy is divvied up among candidates who agree to abide by campaign spending limits. Had Davis not qualified for the subsidy, Blaha, who struggled to raise money last year, would have gotten an additional $28,000 subsidy. Instead, she received she would have gotten $28,000 more in a subsidy, but she received $56,000. So in recent years, Republicans have been colluding with friendly candidates to run on the line of the state's two marijuana legalization parties, Legal Marijuana Now and Grassroots Legalized Candidates, in an effort to pull votes from the DFL candidates. The two parties and political analysts have debated whether the pot party candidates were decisive in defeating Democrats in 2020, but the Republican donations to the auditor race indicate at least some GOP operatives thought the strategy could be effective. Blaha was narrowly reelected in November. As a matter of fact, of all the statewide races, she was the closest. She beat Ryan Wilson by 8,435 votes, while the pot candidate, Davis, pulled 87,000 votes. So, yeah, I mean, that came pretty close to actually becoming a spoiler. The donations are newly relevant as the legislature continues a bill to make it harder for alternative parties to attain major party status. Major party status, which means two pot parties attained with some strong showings in 2018, means automatic ballot access, meaning anyone can sign up to be a candidate for one of those parties, which is what makes them vulnerable to chicanery. But the alternative parties say the proposed amounts of Democrats and Republicans limiting voters' choices to be an unappealing duopoly. Ken Martin, it's outrageous that a group of elected officials, candidates, and consultants gamed Minnesota's public financing system and a major party status rules to unjustly funnel taxpayer monies into their campaign. The ongoing abuse of Minnesota's third parties by people who don't think they can win a fair election needs to stop. Once Davis raised enough money to get the public windfall, he used most of it to hire a longtime Republican activist to door knock for his campaign. He hired Paul Tushy, a.k.a. Liberty Longbeard, a former GOP state house candidate and 2020 campaign advisor to the late Adam Weeks, who was a legal marijuana now candidate in the 2nd District with close ties to the Republicans. Tushy was paid by Republican Tyler Kistner's congressional campaign while also working for Weeks. Sure. I mean, this is like a West Virginia family reunion, for God's sakes. Tushy's campaign, Ground Game LLC, was paid nearly $26,000 for Davis's door knocking. According to Davis campaign finance report, Davis told the reformer Tushy made and distributed flyers for him. The flyer blasted Blaha for crashing her car, accused Governor Walz's administration of being corrupt. Blaha said the flyer seemed more about trashing the DFL party than highlighting Davis's stances on issues, which is, okay, so once again, they get the money to this guy, and then basically under his guise, basically who seem to put out through a guy who has connections to the Republican Party, Republican talking points about Julie Blaha. Franson of Alexandria, Nathan Wessenberg of Little Falls also was part of this, this game, and his wife Jennifer, who donated $100 on the July 18th deadline. Wessenberger did not respond to a request for comment, asked for a donation. Franson had said, replied by email, I believe in democracy, do you? So wait a minute here. You are completely and totally against the idea of legalizing marijuana, but because of democracy, not to help out any of your own party members, but democracy, you basically donated money to basically try to steer money away from, okay. House District, I should mention this, Stephen Swabada, Steve Swabada, who ran as the Republican candidate against Rick Hansen down in 53B. He also made a donation, apparently, that according to Blue Stem Prairie. So, yeah, this is ugly. Davis also received donations for former state Supreme Court candidate Michelle McDonald, Representative Patty Anderson of Delwood, Republican activist and Wilson supporter Nathan Hansen. Davis said most of the money was raised by Paula Overby of Eagan, the longtime advocate for alternative parties, ran for Congress in the 2nd District under the banner of Independence Party in 2016. Democrats say Angie Craig was hindered by her first run for Congress by Overby's strong showing. I said earlier when I was talking to Melissa Franson that it was 2018. It was 2016 she lost. 2018 she did win, and she's won ever since. Davis said he met Tushy through Overby. I'm sorry. This whole thing seems like it's a complete web, man. It's a complete web. And, I have to ask the question of the legalized marijuana parties. Are the people in charge of those parties getting something on the side here to allow your party to be used in this manner? I mean, is this because one thing I want to make sure I'm clear is I've actually seen some pro-pot guys who seem to be very much against the DFL legalizing marijuana. And that doesn't make any damn sense to me. Because if your whole game plan is to legalize marijuana, why, when all of a sudden one of the major parties that could actually make it happen says they're going to make it happen, are you against it? Needless to say, why not? State Auditor Julie Blaha will join us when we do come back. We'll talk to her about this as well. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
I feel the earth move.
Hey, AM 950 listeners. My name is JP Darbagosian, and I'm the host of This Queer Book, Save My Life, the show that celebrates life-giving LGBTQ stories. Every week, I talk with new guests about the LGBTQ books that help us live and love with pride. On our next episode, I sit down with Lasaya Wade to discuss Secret Society by Miyasha, and Miyasha joins us for that conversation. You can join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Frank Brown, owner of Minuteman Press Uptown, Minnesota's only minority-owned union printing company. And I have big news. We've moved. Our new building in North Minneapolis is much larger with state-of-the-art equipment. That means we can get your projects done faster. We're on Washington Avenue North off I-94 at the Dowling exit, which allows for quick pickup and drop-off with plenty of free parking. And yes, we still print everything. I moved to MP Uptown because as a Black business owner, I want to be in North Minneapolis and help provide jobs. At MP Uptown, we pay above living wages, hire people who have made mistakes in the past, and believe in social justice. We have over 175 Google reviews with a 5-star rating. Let us handle your next print project because when you support our business, you support the community. Call 612-870-0777 or visit mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com. We print everything.
This is Angela Warner from Warner Stellian. Does everything seem more expensive these days? Once you get over the sticker shock, then there's tax. Well, Warner Stellian's offering some relief. Whether you need to replace a broken appliance or you're ready for that appliance you've dreamt about, we invite you to take a vacation from inflation during our 7.5% tax rebate sale. On top of instant savings, now through April 3rd, we'll also save you the tax. There's no better time to buy, and no one will treat you or your wallet better than the appliance specialist, Warner Stellian.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 39. Tonight, rain with a low around 35. And Friday, rain and snow with a high around 41. Discover the magic of Crooner's Supper Club. From the incredible shows to the cozy ambiance of Maggie's Lounge, there's no better place to spend an evening with friends, family, or that special someone. Crooner's Supper Club is located off Moore Lake and Highway 65. More at croonersloungemn.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Joining us right now to talk a little bit about that last story about it, as well as how things are going with the auditor's office, is the state auditor of the state of Minnesota, Julie Blaha, is kind enough to take some time to talk about things. Hi, Julie. How are you?
Great to talk to you, Matt.
Good to talk to you as well. Obviously one of the things I mentioned in the story is that your statewide race was the closest of all of them. It was 8,435 votes. You beat Ryan Wilson, though, to win a second term there. I got to believe that the story from the reformers got to make you think that maybe one of the reasons why this was so close was seemed to be some efforts by some of the Republicans to, clearly run this third party candidate against you.
Well, we look at what we kind of went through in that race. We were up against a really wealthy candidate. My Republican opponent had put in over $250,000 of his own money into the race. They were lying about what the state auditor did. And now we see they're willing to cheat a little too. So I think it really shows just how important every single person who supported me was. Every single thing anybody did was absolutely essential this year. So they threw all that at us and we still won. But it does really talk about the challenges of people who try to really take advantage of third parties that don't have the infrastructure to fight off an attack like this.
I have to ask the question, and I don't know the law, and I'm not sure if you do as well, but I do have to ask the question. I mean, if you know that Republicans donated to the campaign, and once again, anyone can donate to anyone, that's for sure. But then the money went to what seems to be a person with a lot of connections to the Republican Party, and that the flyers that they were putting out there had nothing to do with the pro-marijuana stances of the candidate, were more just attack ads for you. I almost kind of wondered, are we getting into some sort of realm of possibly breaking a state law at this point? Because there definitely seems to be a level of conspiracy that's going on here.
Well, I would be surprised if it broke a law, but you know what? I think we all know it doesn't smell right.
Yeah.
Right? The idea that you're using public subsidy, something that's designed for regular people to run for office. I'm a teacher. A teacher like me doesn't get to be a statewide official if you don't have programs like this. So it's really ironic to be funneling money from a regular person into kind of through a third party, effectively benefiting the wealthiest, one of the richest candidates that ran last year. So there is something that feels really just abusive about that. But it's also interesting too, I think, that, people thought they'd get away with this because typically you don't report donations that are smaller than $200. The way you qualify for this public subsidy where you get some support to run the campaign is by collecting a certain amount of money in small donations. You have to get so many donations of first $50 donations, right? And so what I thought was interesting was on Tim Davis's last report, I don't know if he did this inadvertently, but he released his entire list of donors. And so I am absolutely sure that Representative Patty Anderson, who is, by the way, a former state auditor, or Representative Franson or Wiesenberg, I am pretty sure they thought that no one would ever know they did this. But because he over-disclosed, all of these names came out. And so I think that does tell you, though, the importance of transparency and disclosure so people can see this kind of stuff. And I would say also shows how important it is that you have parties that are really up to the task of running elections. If you can't get candidates, if you can't fend off manipulators, you know what? You really have to think, are you truly a major party?
Well, and that's the thing, is that they say, well, we don't like the duopoly of the two-party system, but how do you like being used to basically manipulate the two-party system into a one-party system? Because that's what has happening with the legal marijuana party. They're using them basically not to give a third party a voice, but basically to stymie the only other party that could stop the Republicans. And I think that's, like I said, I agree with you. It sounds like his disclosure left out too much information. And I've got to imagine this is a massive headache for the Republicans, especially as we get ready to debate legal marijuana, because there's a lot of Republicans who are now on the record of actually supporting a legalizing marijuana candidate, that they're now going to have to say, well, that was something different.
Oh, absolutely. And Tim Davis had 4 platform planks. They were environmental support, legalizing cannabis, and then it was also right to die and population reduction. So, it's very unusual that some of these people's ideologies are so unaligned, but the idea that they would do anything to try to get their candidate through. And that is what feels so kind of icky about all of this, is that, you're going to do something you don't believe in just so that you can push somebody and basically push somebody over the top to kind of pull money in the wrong direction. That's really cynical at best.
Can you actually explain a little bit more on population reduction? What's he pushing?
I don't know. And that was something, I'm not sure what that would have to do with the auditor. I promise you that's not something that I work on.
You're not going out there. Okay, good. I want to make sure that's not a bylaw or something we're missing here in the auditor's office.
No. I think the joke we sometimes make is maybe I bore people to death, but I mean, nothing. I'm not really trying to reduce the population.
Julie, I'm going to tell you for the record, you're not boring anyone to death. I can tell you that. You're a hoot. Okay. So they just population decreasing. Okay, and the Republicans were for this. Okay, great. The pro-life party, you say, great. All right. Yeah, this is it is ugly, but once again, it's same day, different story. The only reason these people thought they would get away with it because they didn't realize that Tim Davis didn't understand that most people don't reveal who gave donations, smaller donations. Do you feel as if this bill that's going through the House and Senate right now would change this, would at least make it a little bit more honest to prevent? I mean, I don't have any problem with third-party candidates. Mm-hmm. I just don't like third-party candidates who are basically clearly only being propped up to basically help only one party being one-party rule.
Oh, I agree. I'm a huge fan of third parties as well. I think that The more ideas, the better. But, the point of being a major party where you're going to be qualifying to use people's tax dollars to run. And remember that, you have to be in a major party to qualify for the public subsidy. But, that means you have a responsibility to use tax dollars fairly. And when you can't even keep people from funneling tax dollars into the wealthiest candidates, on your watch, then I don't think you're ready to assume that responsibility. You really need to have the infrastructure to be able to do this stuff right. And I tell you, I think 5% support, I don't know if that's enough. 10% if they want to move to, I think that makes a lot more sense. Again, you're still going to be able to have a number of parties can reach that. If you are, doing your work, you've got an issue that matters, you can get there, but you also then will have the infrastructure to be able to protect yourself from being manipulated. And right now, you don't want to see people doing this kind of stuff because it just violates the public trust. And then you have fewer people wanting to be involved. And that's really ultimately dangerous. And especially a program that's designed to help regular people, not just rich people, be able to get into office. It's really un-Minnesotan to abuse a program like that. So, you know what? I do support that bill to say, hey, you know what? We can support third parties, but you've got to be able to have at least 10% support to show that you've got the ability to actually be trusted with tax dollars.
I do, if I can say one thing here. Your opponent, after I got into the car accident in December, sent me a very nice basket, get well basket, which I was stunned by, but he did that. It was very nice of him. I did appreciate it. I think sometimes, and you can talk to this too, is sometimes the machinations of what go around the candidates is really kind of a lot of the obnoxious part. And you realize is that, I don't think Ryan Wilson was controlling this and running this. It clearly sounds like some sort of machine that was going on there. When you think about all the stuff with the printing, the connections to the guy that was doing the door knocking, who had connections to Kistner down in 2, there seems to be machinations. Candidates, it is unfortunate because I think that sometimes you can have good candidates and decent people, and just because the machine as it is particularly with the Republican Party, when stuff like this comes to light, they all look bad.
One challenge that I wonder is, one of the challenges about understanding that is my Republican opponent, he didn't fully really disclose very well on his reporting. So we can't see if he used that vendor like had happened in Angie Craig's race. And some of it is because he, since he gave $250,000, he did it in a way where he could hide what he spent the money on. And I think that also gets at that idea of this kind of reflexive approach Republicans have to not disclose properly, to not be forthcoming about what they're doing with their funds. And so, again, I don't think he's a bad guy, but I don't know. We can't be sure that he wasn't involved with this, because when he filled out his reports, he basically, for $250,000, basically hid what he did with it. So, I think that if there's a really extensive problem right now, I think that the Republicans need to root out about kind of bringing back some real integrity and just kind of decency to how they're running their campaigns.
Let's turn to the auditor. Since you've been auditor here, what's new been going on with the office? What have you guys been up to?
Well, our focus right now is taking our data out to the people and asking for what they believe is going on with local government finance. We make these big reports and all these wonderful graphs, but they don't mean anything until someone tells us the stories behind them. So we've been on a listening tour where we're talking to township clerks, and we're talking to county commissioners, and we're talking to city staff and saying, all right, here's what we're seeing in our graphs. What does that mean in your world? And then what we do is we take all that feedback and give it back to the public so that you can kind of see what is going on in local government. And we're really starting to see some interesting ideas about how do people handle one-time money? How are people coming out of the pandemic? And what should that tell us about how do we handle future crises? I think what we're noticing is that, local governments did a lot of things really right with how they handled COVID and keeping us out of economic freefall. But we need to kind of build some infrastructure around that so the next time we have a crisis, we're ready to use every resource we have available to us. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're doing. It's about basically listening and saying, hey, here's what the graphs say. What do they mean to you? Which is exciting. Now, again, I sometimes don't lead with the idea that, hey, we're going to bring a whole bunch of graphs to your town. That doesn't always get people. We lead with listening. and that gets a little bit more participation. Though I know that there are a bunch of your listeners that if I say, hey, I'm coming with spreadsheets, that they are absolutely there for that.
Well, and one of the things that I think is important to say about that is that this is the new world. And yeah, we've had pandemics in the past. We just have not had a major one until we had COVID. And so one of the things which I appreciate what your office is doing is within the fluidity of this situation and coming out of COVID, which is once again, to a point, a brand new experience for a lot of places, being on the forefront to say, you know what, this town's doing it really well. Let's advise this other town. Here's what they've been doing. Give them a call, talk to them. They've got this figured out. Being a point person to help cities get through this is making sure they're doing things fiscally correctly. I think that's a really big accomplishment for you, because I think that shows me that you're looking at this as a continually fluid situation.
Oh, and when you're talking about what can bring people together, there are times when we have a hard time finding anything to agree on. Well, if we can at least start with the data, we start with the idea like this is what happened, but what does it mean? We at least have some common place to start. So we have Republicans, Democrats, and Libertarians, and pod party candidates. Everybody shows up at these meetings. And it's just wonderful to be able to come together and have a conversation that's very concrete and very productive and fact-based to kind of, show kind of what we hope we would like to see everywhere in politics today.
Where, any place particularly you've been driving around to?
Well, right now we're going out to Freeborn Township, county, to meet with the townships that are in Freeborn County. So that's where I'm on the road right now. So we're on the way to Albert Lee. But it's those kind of meetings that are the best. And I grew up. My mom was on a township board, and that's what got me to first start thinking about what politics could do for people. And so I'm always a fan to go talk, particularly to township people. Because I'll tell you, it doesn't get much more concrete than figuring out how to get a township road paved.
Well, and of course, you get to Albert Lee, you get to stop by the Travel Plaza down there.
Well, yes, of course. Yes, we will. I got to get a snack and got to get. They have great stuff.
Their jerky selection is pretty robust there, so you're going to be set.
I think I got a camouflage popcorn there once, which was a bold choice, I'll say.
Oh gosh, bold choice. Yes, indeed. Julie Blaha, the state auditor, on the road. Julie, first of all, thank you very much for coming in and commenting on the Minnesota Reformer story, as well as giving us an update on your office. And as always, Julie, you are always welcome to come on back anytime you want to. Okay.
Well, and I really appreciate that you tell the stories of all of us, not just the flashy stuff, but all the stuff that matters. So thank you so much for paying attention to our work.
My pleasure. Julie Blaha, the state auditor for the state of Minnesota. Let's take a break. Come on back. I'll finish out that story because I want to read the rest of what the Minnesota Reformer wrote. I'll read that up when I come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Nightingale is your cozy, comfortable neighborhood restaurant in the Whittier neighborhood at 26th and Lindale. Nightingale has patio, dining room, and bar seating available. Plus, they still have takeout and delivery. Their menu has lots of delicious options like the famous Nightingale burger and fries, ginger tamari chicken wings, smoked chicken liver pate, and more. They're open from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. daily with their full menu until midnight. So make the friendly neighborhood Nightingale your go-to restaurant in South Minneapolis. Place an order, make a reservation, and more at nightingalempls.com.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. Even though Auto Technical is a small nonprofit, we have helped more families with transportation than any organization in Minnesota. Since '94, we have reconditioned donated vehicles so they have a higher tax benefit. Call Richard at 612-919-5526, 612-919-5526, or autotech.org.
Would you let animals pick your insurance? Do you really need to experience mayhem to get the best rates? Or how about a celebrity quarterback or fake university saving you money? There's a lot of marketing stunts when it comes to insurance, but what you really need is someone looking out for you. Call Array Insurance, and they will work hard to find you the best insurance coverage and rates. So avoid gimmicks and call Cheryl at Array, 763-504-3067, or arrayinsurance.com. Array Insurance, working hard for you.
Tune in for Philosophy Talk, the program that questions everything
except your intelligence.
Coming up, the philosophy of smell.
Why have philosophers turned their noses up at olfaction? What have they got against the smell of freshly baked bread?
Yeah, focusing on our sense of smell can help us gain new insight into perception, thought, and language.
You think those insights will really pass the philosophical sniff test?
The philosophy of smell. Next time on Philosophy Talk.
Philosophy Talk, every Sunday at 8 a.m. on AM 950.
Do you really want to taste that?
Population reduction. I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't know if I'm on board with that one.
We'll look up and see what the polls say about that. How that does.
I imagine the first rebuttal is, you talking to me? Yes. And I do want to say, if I can, to the Republican candidate, Ryan Wilson, that was a very nice gesture when you sent me that basket. I do appreciate that greatly here. I'm going to presume, just, because I don't know anything else to tell me differently, I'm going to presume these machinations were going on behind the scenes and you weren't aware of them. That's at least what I'm going to say. But yeah, this is ugly. Let me go back to the story here. Because once again, he gets money from a bunch of Republicans. Then he ends up hiring a guy that's got a lot of connections to Republicans to do his door knocking and, mailers and stuff, or, leaflets, I guess. And they're all basically like a Republican fever dream against Julie Blaha. And it wasn't just one Republican. It was quite a few of them that were sending in money for this case. Davis, the candidate for the legalizing marijuana party, I don't have the exact party in front of me here, but the candidate, the pro-marijuana candidate, said most of the money was raised by Paul Overby of Eagan, the longtime advocate for alternative parties, ran for Congress in the 2nd District under the banner of the Independence Party in 2016. Democrats say that Angie Craig, who was hindered in her first run Congress by Overby's strong showing, Overby won 29,000 votes. Craig lost to Republican former U.S. Representative Jason Lewis by 6,655. Craig prevailed over Lewis in 2018, has been reelected ever since. Last year, however, Democrats feared a repeat when Overby ran as a legal marijuana now candidate before dying in October. She had close ties to Republican activists in the camp of the Republican challenger, Tyler Kistner. Tushy, she posted photos and status updates tagging Tushy, who had been a past delegate for Kistner. So once again, it doesn't even seem like they're trying to hide it now. The legal marijuana now candidate was sitting here. Yeah, I'm working with this person who's working with working with the candidate in the same race they're in. So that's one person. It's like the lawyer in a Trump, the lawyer saying, you got to go with my lawyers. You think they're going to be defending you? I don't think so. Davis said he met Tushy through Overby. She got most of these people to donate. We're going to raise enough money to get a public subsidy. Asked why so many Republicans donated to his campaign, Davis acknowledged, it doesn't look suspicious. It does look suspicious. I'll grant you that. You think? But then he berated the two-party system as the illusion of choice in America. If people want to give, they're free to give. Whether they're Republicans or Democrats, the money is the same. Here's the problem. As you sit there and complain about the two-party system, they were manipulating the system to try to turn it into a one-party system at your expense. They didn't really care about you. So stop acting like this is some last stand of freedom, for God's sakes. No, you were a mule for them. That's all you were. You weren't doing anything for them outside of trying to play the spoiler. They didn't want you to win. If they thought you would win, they wouldn't have given you a dang dime. They just wanted you to take enough votes away from Blaha to try to help out their candidate. So stop acting like you were doing some kind of, last stand for democracy here, dude. You just weren't. He said they're always trying to pull a fast one. He said both Republicans and Democrats have tried to limit the number of people voting and who can run in third parties. Well, okay, can I just say this? Maybe you third parties out there who are all upset because the Democrats look like they're going to push this through with some Republican support, I might add, too. Maybe, just maybe, if you didn't allow your parties to become a freaking laughingstock and be manipulated as easily as you guys clearly were, then maybe people wouldn't be talking about having to rein you guys in. Maybe if your political party had some freaking integrity at all, this wouldn't be happening. But heaven forbid we get in your way on that one. And population decreasing. Blaha said the public subsidy is intended to help regular Minnesotans run for office. We really need to ensure that the public subsidy is used to intended and that third parties can protect themselves. Blaha says she believes Davis was a true believer in legalization before running. He was the head of the pro-pot party, after all. To take advantage of someone who truly believes in what they're doing is particularly un-Minnesotan. Ultimately, this was a good government. Abusing the system like this violates the public trust. You know, he should know who the representative, you should know who Michelle McDonald is. You should know who the representatives are for the Republican Party. When you start getting donations from them, that should maybe set off a few red flags of why are they donating to me? Because, hey, you want to make a donation, that's fine. Mary Franson, can I ask you a question? Why are you donating to a guy who basically is against, his only main issue is everything you stand against? And what was that about decreasing the population? I would like to know more on your brave endorsement of that stance. Ross Stadheim from MJSB Justice up next. It's the Matt McNeil Show.
The St. Paul Art Collective is thrilled to announce the return of the St. Paul Art Crawl this spring. New for 2023, the St. Paul Art Crawl will now span 4 weekends from April 14th through May 7th. The event will showcase the work of local artists from 10 distinct art districts in St. Paul. This year's crawl promises to be bigger and better than ever, with 21 different venues hosting hundreds of talented artists, live music, dance, and delicious local food. As the longest-running art crawl in the United States, the St. Paul Art Crawl is an iconic event for art lovers and collectors alike. You can explore the city's diverse neighborhoods and experience the unique creative vision of each artist. The casual and family-friendly atmosphere makes it a must-attend event for anyone looking to support local art while having a great time doing it. So wander the St. Paul Art Crawl and discover the wonder of it all. That's 4 weekends spanning April 14th through May 7th. More at stpaulartcollective.org.
Your need-to-know news headquarters, the Tom Hartman Program, AM 950, KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. Police in Nashville released audio of 911 calls on the day of this week's school shooting.
Are you in a safe spot right now?
I think so. 3 children and 3 adults were shot and killed at the Covenant School. This woman called police from the school.
In the art room. Art room.
Yes, please hurry. I'm hearing you.
They're coming. They're coming.
Just
try to stay quiet. I don't know what's going on there.
The release of the recordings came as people protested at the Tennessee Capitol in favor of tighter gun controls, calling on the Republican-led legislature to take action. Russia's security service arrested an American reporter for the Wall Street Journal, Evan Grishkovich, on espionage charges. This is White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
The charge of espionage is ridiculous. We cannot, that is not accurate, and we find that incredibly ridiculous.
Russia says Grishkovich was arrested in the country's 4th largest city, accused of trying to obtain classified information. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby says Russia is trying to get weapons for the war in Ukraine from North Korea.
We also understand that Russia is seeking to send a delegation to North Korea, and that Russia is offering North Korea food in exchange for munitions.
Experts believe the food situation in North Korea is the worst it's been under Kim Jong-un's 11-year rule. A jury began deliberating in Gwyneth Paltrow's trial over a 2016 ski collision at a Utah resort. Attorneys for Paltrow and the 76-year-old man suing her described their clients in closing arguments as aggrieved victims. The 8-person jury is tasked with weighing dueling versions of who was the downhill skier, making the other side culpable according to a skier responsibility code. Wall Street, the Dow finished up 141 points. Forceful actions by regulators have helped build the confidence that the current trouble for banks won't torpedo the economy. This is AP News.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
You know, it's true. Difficult times have a way of focusing us. We have to think about what matters most when it comes to our spending, our healthcare. No doubt. This is why so many people are joining MediShare right now. MediShare is a trusted way to save up to 50% on your monthly healthcare costs. More than 400,000 people have already made the switch. It's pretty obvious why, too, especially now during this challenging season with healthcare costs and out-of-pocket expenses going up. MediShare can save you a lot of money. The typical family saves $500 a month. And MediShare is a Christian healthcare sharing ministry that's worked beautifully for 27 years. There are different options to choose from to fit your budget. I'll give you the number here in a second. And if you call, you can get a price within 2 minutes. Maybe now is the perfect time to make the switch and start saving. Here you go. Call 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE. 855-51-BIBLE.
Hey, it's Patrick. It's March, and believe it or not, it's almost time for spring cleaning. You're not the only one who's tired of winter this year, because your carpets and air ducts are too. Think about the dust, dander, and bacteria living and breeding in your carpet, upholstery, air ducts, and more with nowhere to go. There's only one real way to get rid of that gunk in your home, and that's by calling our cleaning heroes at Zero Res. With Zero Res's platinum-rated cleaning systems and patented ZR water, they will extract all that nasty out of your home, and it will look and smell like a home should. And with the Zero Res Gotta Love It guarantee, you know they will take care of you. This month, get 3 rooms Zero Resified from the Twin Cities' #1 carpet cleaner, starting at $129. And take $75 off your air duct cleaning as well to get that true spring cleaning feel. Call 952-ZERO-RES or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com right now and say you want the AM 950 special. Zero Res.
Seward Co-op is now offering convenient self-serve and prepackaged hot options and salad bars at both the Franklin and Friendship stores. Breakfast items available daily until 11 a.m. and brunch served all day every Sunday. Their weekly lunch and dinner menus highlight cuisines from around the world. They offer vegan, vegetarian, and gluten-free options daily. 95% of the ingredients used are organic from small-scale, local community food producers whenever possible. More at seward.coop.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 39. Tonight, rain with a low around 35. And Friday, rain and snow with a high around 41. Discover the magic of Crooner's Supper Club. From the incredible shows to the cozy ambiance of Maggie's Lounge, there's no better place to spend an evening with friends, family, or that special someone. Crooner's Supper Club is located off Moore Lake and Highway 65. More at CroonersLoungeMN.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Hour number 2 of the show on your Thursday. Good to be with you. Matt and Brett today, jam-packed. Once again, we'll have the interviews with Melissa Franzen over at Fair Vote Minnesota, as well as Julia Blaha, the state auditor. They'll be posted up on in iTunes and all these before too long, including our next interview as well. So enjoy at your leisure. Ross Stadheim is kind enough to join us, a partner with MJSB Employment Justice. We're going to talk about an issue which is near and dear to my heart, because I have seen people in my industry get destroyed by these things. And that is getting rid of the non-compete, orders that they can put out there. There's an effort right now to ban non-compete agreements in Minnesota. The DFL seems to be on board with this. I work in media. I have seen in media, I remember I almost got fired myself. When I said this, like when the guy said, well, this prevents the guy across town from hiring my best talent away from me. I said, well, if you pay them, they don't leave, do they? You better shut up, McNeil. I'm like, it's like, oh, I see how this is. Yeah, it's a game they play. It's a little more complicated than that, but at the same time, it is an issue where it's basically a way to give employees less rights than they should have, and they should not be in place. Ross, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Great to be here, Matt.
First of all, let's talk about this, because it does seem like over the years the non-competition agreements, non-compete orders have gotten more aggressive and more dystopian in regards to the employees and the consequences to them for them. Is that just me, or these things really seem to be abusive at this point?
Well, they certainly have become more broad. I mean, they're really, really, really pervasive in America these days. It's almost like, they got an idea in their head, large employers, and decided to, basically put them in every sort of, file that they have and make these folks sign it. Basically what a lot of employers do, Matt, is, that big packet that you get right when you start a new job, and you have to sign that you've, seen your employee handbook, that, you're not going to use the internet for nefarious purposes and things of that nature. Then they throw the non-compete agreement at you. You got to sign your rights away as a condition of employment. And I saw a statistic the other day, like 32% of working Americans are subject to these things.
Well, because it used to be when I went to radio school a long time ago. I went to radio school. It was media people and like executives of corporations were really the main people. And to a point, at least the executives, I can get that. You know, you don't want someone jumping ship to another competition, and right before you launch a major project and or a product and things go. I mean, to a point, you can get them, but those non-compete orders were very different from what you get here. There are ones today which are applied to even the lowest level jobs, correct?
Correct. A deal that I always look at is there was an order in 2016 where Jimmy John's was actually having their sandwich shop folks sign these non-compete agreements saying you can't work after you're terminated at a competing sandwich shop for 2 years inside of 2 miles. So completely ridiculous and hurting Americans who are low wage earners, and it just makes absolutely no sense. It stifles innovation, and it's kind of anti-capitalistic in my mind.
Well, clearly, in a case like that, all you're doing is trying to keep employees at a low wage in-house, because where else are you going to go? You got to go 2 miles away from it. Do you know of any cases where they went and challenged their employees in those work in that one?
A court actually threw that out and said, "Hey, Jimmy John's, no way." Yeah, this is completely ridiculous, and it's overbearing, and it's hurting these low wage earners.
We should make sure we mention this as well. It doesn't matter if you quit or you're fired. These things usually, you can. So you say, "I don't want to work for you, I quit." Well, then the non-compete order kicks in. Or if you were fired, even if you're getting laid off, they'll put that into place to prevent you. And like I said, I can say this because of media. I have been in media markets where there's been 3 radio stations, 20 radio stations. In TV markets, TV reporters generally have these things, 3 stations. It basically cripples your ability in the market that you're in from being able to go and get a job someplace else. I mean, you have to actually leave the field almost to be able to pull that off. It doesn't matter. It's about control of the worker. Similar ask to the old, corporate town, company town that they used to have in the 1880s, 1890s, where you went in there and the bank was under the corporation, your house was owned by the corporation, the stores were owned by the corporation. So you better stay on the side of the corporation or else.
Right. It reminds me of, that reminds me of like, It's a Wonderful Life, where it's like Pottersville, and it's in that dystopian future where Jimmy Stewart is like, "Oh, what's going on?"
Now, George Bailey needs to be whipped in the public square. There you go. Basically, it gets down to you have to have a person, and this is ludicrous in a city like Minneapolis. I really do, because it's such a vibrant city to have something like this. Unless there is some, I can't even at this point really kind of come up with any idea. I mean, if you don't want people to leave, just treat your people better.
Right.
Pay them the salary that they deserve. They'll stay. Trust me, there's plenty of people that never once think about leaving their job because, hey, they pay me well. I got good bennies. I like it here. It almost seems like it's the excuse for the company to not treat their people well.
Right, exactly, Matt. And these non-compete agreements, they're contracts. So typically what I see in my legal practice is when I'm reviewing these non-compete agreements, it really doesn't matter if you're terminated. It doesn't matter if you quit. It doesn't matter how you leave your employment, but it stifles the worker from working in their industry for upwards of periods of 2, sometimes 3 years. And sometimes these things are banning, a worker from doing business within the entire United States for a period of 2 years within that industry.
There are going to be some people out there say, "Hey, I brought up the executive example. You're a major corporation, you're launching a product here," that sort of thing. With non-compete orders in place, if you don't have them, there really are still laws in the books that prevent people from really kind of doing stuff like that, correct?
Absolutely. Those are trade secret laws.
Yeah,
You can't steal proprietary information and then go use it for your own benefit. A non-compete agreement is, or order as you're calling them, is completely different than, taking a company's trade secrets and then using it against them to start your own business. Certainly you can be sued for, taking their customer list, taking their intellectual property to benefit, your own startup business or whatever. You still can't do that.
I think I use order because, really, let's be honest, it's more of an order.
Yeah, absolutely.
Legally terms, you're the legal expert. It's an agreement, but the reality is I have seen guys get wiped out. I mean, that they've literally had to completely leave a state because they couldn't find work, because the person basically, with the joy of a station manager doing that to someone else. It really is disturbing, because it's the ability for an employer to abuse their own employees under the umbrella of this is undeniable.
Right. It is undeniable. And that's why I really, really hope that Minnesota does the right thing and passes a non-compete ban. So, I'd encourage all your listeners to call your state senator, call your state House representative person, and indicate your support for, House File 295 and Senate File 405, banning non-competes, which is currently being debated during this session.
And once again, hearing from people is a good thing, and especially if you've got a story with this. Talk to your representative, talk to your senator, because that's ammunition they can bring into this argument here. Have you heard at all about how the fight is going over in St. Paul on this issue?
I think it's kind of falling on party lines is what I'm hearing a little bit, which is disappointing. And they are putting it in, they're going through revisions and that sort of thing, as every legislation does. So right now, currently, I see that, one of the edits that they've made is if a person makes equal to or over what the median income of a family of four is for the previous year, then a non-compete could still apply. So I looked this up, and so if that goes into place, if you make over like $77,000 per year, then you could still be subject to a non-compete. But I even think that's a little bit ridiculous. I just think they should be banned, no matter who you are, no matter what your occupation is. It's a little telling, Matt. In law, we don't have non-competes. Okay, they are against our like code of ethics or whatever, because the client decides who they want to go with. Yeah. But we don't have any sort of non-competes in what we do, because we realize that they stifle innovation, and it's not fair to the person decide which lawyer they want to go with.
You said $77,000. Is that for a family? You said
$77,000 for an individual.
Individual.
Okay. Yep. Sorry about that.
Well, and so, but it's still at the same time. It's just, if you're paying your people the same rate, giving them the good benefits, you're basically on the upper curve of this in the market. You're generally not going to have a problem. And that's, I see this. My wife, she works kind of in the financial sector a little bit. And that's kind of how it is. And I could point to certain businesses in this town that have worse reps or better reps on certain things. It really is kind of one of those things where you just don't try to manipulate the system to keep people in place just because you don't want to do the right thing for your employees.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
By the way, and It's a Wonderful Life, going back to that, there is one political party that rides with Potter. There's one political party that goes with George Bailey. I'm just going to let you know. They seem to be taking sides nowadays. I'm not a fan of Potterville. All right, so let's go to the Family Leave Act here. This is something that is interesting. So, okay, I'm about to really go nerd on you. All right, I'm watching the classic Doctor Who channel. I know, who doesn't love that? I'm watching that, and an ad came up, and it was an incredibly good ad. That was a woman who was saying that with a lack of family leave, we just could not take time off. We could not be there. My mom ended up dying by herself, that none of the family was there. It was an incredibly, I said, wow, that's the ad that you should be playing, because that's relevant. In this day and age when people have to work so much, having better protections for people so that they, in case of a crisis, in case of emergency, that they're not betrothed to the employer to basically, have to get in. I don't care if mom's sick. You got to hit the punch press. I think that we need to really address this and hopefully get that through over in St. Paul as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting that Minnesota is, taking a look at paid family leave. Federally, we have what's called, people have probably, heard about this at their employer, but FMLA.
Yep.
Some people call it FMLA or whatever. So that's a federal unpaid law where you can take up to 12 weeks of leave per year if you've been at the employer for over a year, typically speaking. But in Minnesota, we're looking at doing a paid family leave, which will protect these workers in Minnesota at the state level, and providing them a little bit of a safety net if in case of an emergency. Absolutely.
And we should go back. I remember when they passed the federal thing because, and it was the people made the good argument. It was mainly births, babies, that you take a baby, you can't, we've had people in this country who were giving birth and the boss was like, well, you got to be back in the office on Monday, and it was like, okay, we can do better here. The problem here is that we have, as our population changes, we have a lot more elderly people. Greatest generation, baby boomers, they're up there. There's a lot of them too. You have a lot of family members that are trying to work around this. I mean, I'm 54 now. I'm dealing with elderly parents. You need to have the protections there. And it's not just the time off. You need to have the ability to go out and take care of a family member, knowing that you're not going to go bankrupt, considering what 69% of all households in America live check to check. This is something that it's not going to be abused. There are going to be fail safes in there. It's something that I think we, a compassionate, caring society would have in place.
Absolutely. And most Western countries have paid family leave. For us not to have it, at the national level, it's a little bit ridiculous. We owe it to our working men and women of this state to have that safety net, to give them a little bit of time with a newborn and have it paid for.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, certainly, there are people who are going to be bad eggs and try to abuse this, but that's what investigations are for. They're going to be found out pretty quickly. They're not going to get that doctor's certification to sign off that they have a serious medical condition.
No, and I know because of my car crash I had her back in December. You go in there and the doctor's like, "Oh yeah, let me sign that for you." It's like it's not really a question. You're not going to get the abuse of the system. Plus, like I said, if you want a caring, compassionate system, this is the way to do it. It's one thing to say I'm a caring, compassionate individual. It's another thing to show it. And this is, like I said, a basic way. I know that there is some concern with smaller businesses and stuff, how this is going to apply. But I know that some of the states, I'm almost positive some of the states cover the cost completely themselves.
Yeah, I think that they do. I think that's right. I don't know exactly what the Minnesota bill says right now and how they're working through that. But they're going to work through that. They're going to have safety nets for small business because they don't want to stifle small businesses from starting up or squeeze them out. So, for instance, my law firm is a smaller business, and I know for a fact that they are not going to allow businesses like that to fail that provide leave to its workers who need it.
And I'm going to say this very just bluntly. There are people that are working against this because they know that if this goes into effect, people are going to be like, wow, that's good. And they don't want people to realize, wow, that's good. That's just reality. And there are people that don't want better things to happen because their entire campaign is, hate the other guy. Mm-hmm. And so if things are shown that they're actually helping the other side, that from they're getting help from the other side, that kind of negates this. It is nice. I will say this. After the last few years, especially in the Senate, we are having debates about actual freaking issues and whether or not how to do them, how to implement them, getting rid of non-disclosure agreements, paid family leave. These are things which we have just not had discussions about because everything's waited till the last second and they throw a bill at someone and that's it. It is so refreshing that we actually can have these discussions and actually talk about what is best for Minnesotans.
Stuff's actually getting done, and it looks like it's going to get done, which is nice. Mm-hmm. It's a good change that we're actually trying to solve these problems. And you know what? If you're on the other side of the issue, great, that's fine. Make your voice heard. And ultimately, our elected officials are going to decide what happens.
I'll save some comments for after you're out of the studio. I'll do this. Once again, contact, first of all, in regards to the non-compete, House File 295, Senate File 405, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
All right. We want people, if you want to get rid of these non-competes, especially anyone working in a job where this is stifling your ability to get another job someplace else, contact your local representation because the more people they hear from, the better that likelihood is that they're going to pass that bill, correct?
Correct. And why if you're fired, why should you have to sit out for 2 years on the sidelines just because you're scared you're going to get sued by your employer for starting a new job in your chosen line of work?
Absolutely.
Ridiculous.
Absolutely. Paid family leave, same thing. If you got a story that you have to tell, contact your local House rep, contact your local senator, let them know what's been going on and how paid family leave would help you out. We can get these things passed. We can make real change happen. And like I said, I like the Wellstone thing. Equal tide raises all boats. Everyone gets these benefits. It helps everyone across the board, regardless of what your political ideology is. And that's good legislation out of Minnesota. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
So, Ross, thank you very much. It's nice. You are only the second person I've had. There's both from MJSB. You are the first two people I've had in a studio since the pandemic.
I love it.
I didn't realize I've gotten to the point of I don't talk to anyone face to face anymore. Ross, thanks for coming in. I appreciate this, man.
Matt, it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Ross Stadheim, MJSB, Employment Justice. I'll put a link up to them, put a link up to this interview as well, coming up a little bit later on. Let's take a break. Come on back. A lot of other things to get to today as well. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
The Rick Smith Show.
Michigan. Oh, Michigan. I wish there was a song I could sing. You wouldn't want to hear it, but I wish there were a song about Michigan that I could sing because I would do it, and I would do it badly, but good on you. First time in decades, a state that has enacted the horrible right-to-work legislation. Finally, a state has repealed it. Good on you, Michigan.
Tune in weeknights, 8 to 10 p.m. right here on KTNF AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
The appliance industry is suffering from major delays with shortages on the horizon. The specialists at Warner Stelling have the area's best selection with thousands of appliances in stock for fast pickup or free delivery. Shop 10 Minnesota stores or at warnerstellian.com.
Crooner's Supper Club invites you to enjoy drinks, a delicious dinner, and live music from both big-name local and national artists in a wide array of styles. Before or after your show, check out the new Maggie's Lounge, a perfect spot to visit with friends. It's open Wednesdays through Sundays beginning at 4:30 with cocktails and light fare. And you don't need a ticket to enjoy the great atmosphere of Maggie's. Crooner's Supper Club off Moore Lake and Highway 65. A little piece of old school nightlife in the 21st century.
Hi, Matt McNeil here. On December 8th, I was driving home in my Toyota Sienna from Rudy Luther Toyota. At a traffic light, a car slammed into me. Without a doubt in my mind, if I hadn't been driving a Sienna, I wouldn't be here right now. The car is designed to take a wallop and keep the people inside safe, as it did for me. It's one thing to hear someone talk about safety standards. It's another to become an example of the safety standards. The Toyota saved my life, and I will always own one. If you want real safety, visit Rudy Luther Toyota. Rudy Luther Toyota, the corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Tune in this Saturday morning right here on AM 950 for the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show from 7 to 8 a.m. We'll be discussing perennials in your garden, as well as container gardening 101 and the benefits of cooking in cast iron. That's all this Saturday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. right here on AM 950. Tell a friend and let's grow together.
End-of-life decisions are not easy to make. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Hospice Care. It's important to make sure that this difficult time is meaningful and comforting to you and your loved ones. Our hospice team provides an individualized program of physical, emotional, spiritual, and practical care so your loved one is comfortable and not in pain. At Mary T. Hospice, we understand that choosing the right hospice care provider can be overwhelming, but we're here to assist you. Learn more today at marytinc.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Let's get to, Brett, we haven't had a chance to talk about it because we had interview after interview, man.
Good ones, though.
Oh, gosh,
well
they
worth
were
it, yeah.
fantastic here. The Twins and the Kansas City Royals. It's bottom of the fifth, one out. It's still 0-0. Lopez not looking bad, although in this inning he's got two guys on base. We'll have to see what happens here. So there you go. It's opening day for the Twins. I'm sorry. I'll say this. I don't care that it's cold. I don't care there's a chance of snow. I'll take a few snowed out games early in the season. Nothing sucked more than on July 15th going down to the Metrodome when it was 75 and sunny outside and going into that artificial, godforsaken concrete pit to watch a baseball game. Oh, we walked. We got bases loaded, one out. So they need a grounder.
Thankfully, the Royals aren't that great, so maybe they'll get a ground ball.
Royals.
Yeah.
Didn't you? What's the movie I'm thinking of? Samuel L. Jackson, John Travolta. Oh, God. Bruce Willis. Come on, man.
I don't know why I'm not thinking of it either.
Well, I know the movie. I just can't.
Yeah.
One where he's doing the dancing thing. Royale. And he calls the burger the Royale. All right. Forgive me for a second here. With
Oh, you are. Oh, no, yeah, we got to figure it out. Yeah.
Dang right, I'm going to figure this out because I should. Why is this not? Why am I having a trouble here? I shouldn't be. This is not good. God, he's been in a lot of bad movies, hasn't he? Wow, John Travolta has been in a lot of bad movies. Pulp Fiction. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, remember that one? That little movie. That little minor movie.
Yeah.
A grand jury in New York has voted to indict Donald Trump over his role in the hush money scandal for Stormy Daniels. We have an indictment, folks. We have an indictment.
First, I thought you were going to say a ground ball up the middle, but I'll take that too.
No, that's a more higher priority here. God, he gave 3 balls to Melendez. God, what are you doing, man? Come on, Lopez. Anyway, so there's that. What then? Okay, so we got an indictment of Trump. We got Twins baseball. What the heck is with this with a snowman all of a sudden? Did you see this? Out of nowhere, it went from looks like mostly rain to 6 to 9 inches of snow. I don't appreciate that. I am personally feeling violated by this weather forecast. Like, you can't do this to me, man. You cannot do this to me. Here's the good news. Is the rain, it looks like rain tonight because temperatures are going to stay pretty high tonight. It's not going to really dip down. We're looking like mostly rain. The ice problem looks like it's going to be north and west of the metro. So I will give you that heads up. If you are driving anywhere tonight, if you're heading north of the metro, heading northwest towards St. Cloud or anything, yeah, you want to be careful because that ice gets pretty bad. What's our snowfall total they're expecting here? We're still in a watch. We're not in a warning yet.
I saw that. This says 3 to 7.
No, 3 to 7 now?
Yeah. Mostly it looks like Friday night is when we're getting it.
5 to 8 is what they're saying. Now, Sven, my good friend Sven Sundgaard, who has moved on to greener pastures for sure, who, by the way, has an absolutely delightful pick. I get on an airline flight and they say, sit down and shut up. He gets on one. The Delta crew is taking a photo with him. Looks nice. I'll go retweet the photo of Sven with the Delta crew. Who doesn't like Sven? I mean, he's absolutely a delight. He has said that they might have 5 to 8 inches of snow, but if it's really wet and it stays warm, especially ground level, how much of that accumulates? Probably half. That was what he was saying the other day. He's, of course, been on vacation, so we don't know exactly where that's going to go, but we could have some. We're definitely going to have some snow Friday to Saturday morning. How much, we don't know, but I would not be surprised if it's not that much.
If you're going with what Sven's saying, yeah, that's a good pick. Since he doesn't do the overhyping that many other meteorologists love to do.
He's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. I mean, he's the only weather guy I trust, if you want to know the truth. He's the only guy I trust. So I'm going to go with Sven. If he has an update on this weather, I'll let you know. All right. Let's take a break. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. I've got the train derailment and I've got the end of Lazaro case. Closing arguments are tomorrow. I got to read through a few things, though, because more of that. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Hi, I'm Kelly Tanky.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
Tune in to AM 950's newest show, Searching for Service, a show designed to help current and future Rotarians find purpose through service.
We are dedicated to sharing stories, experiences, and opportunities for those searching for purpose, value, and meaning.
But more importantly, connection through community. Tune in Sundays at 3 p.m. or anytime via podcasts.
It's time to stop searching and start serving.
Hey, it's Tom. Going solar is a great way to save on energy costs. By using the sun to power your house, you can feel good about an investment that will last for years. All Energy Solar is a locally trusted turnkey solar installer that's been around since 2009. They provide custom designs and quality installations of solar panel systems that work for your energy needs. One of the best parts about going solar is it's an investment that can pay for itself. Your system can pay back 100% of the installation cost in as little as 8 years. Plus, a system from All Energy Solar can pay back over 300% of its cost over its lifetime. There's also many tax incentives and rebates available, and the experts at All Energy Solar can walk you through the entire process to make sure you're saving as much as possible. So go green, both financially and environmentally, with All Energy Solar. Get a free, no-obligation assessment from All Energy Solar by calling 800-620-3370 or visiting allenergysolar.com.
Hi, this is Laura. Listen to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. or anytime via podcast. Our individual health is connected to the health of each other and connected to the health of the earth. We know the problems with the dominant food system: climate change, deadening soils, nitrates in the water, factory farming, injustice, concentration of wealth. How do we both as individuals and as a community step up and support a living food system which honors the earth? Tune to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. and remember to support your independent farmers.
This is Ross Stadheim, partner at MJSB Employment Justice. At our firm, we specialize in cases where our clients tried to do the right thing by reporting illegal or unethical conduct and were demoted or fired. There are laws in place that protect people like you who tried to do the right thing by reporting a problem but were retaliated against. At MJSB Employment Justice, we are fearless advocates who will protect your rights and obtain justice, whether it be a Fortune 500 company or something smaller.
Be heard. You deserve better. Contact us today at mjsbjustice.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for cloudy skies today with a high near 39. Tonight, rain with a low around 35. And Friday, rain and snow with a high around 41. Discover the magic of Crooner's Supper Club. From the incredible shows to the cozy ambiance of Maggie's Lounge, there's no better place to spend an evening with friends, family, or that special someone. Crooner's Supper Club is located off Moore Lake and Highway 65. More at croonersloungemn.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Let me just read this briefing as I can. A Manhattan grand jury voted to indict Donald Trump on Thursday for his role in paying hush money to a porn star, according to 4 people with knowledge of the matter. A historic development that will shake up the 2024 presidential race and forever mark him as the nation's first former president to face criminal charges. God, you suck, man. The felony indictment filed under seal by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office will likely be announced in the coming days. By then, prosecutors working for the District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, will have asked Mr. Trump to surrender and to face arraignment on charges that remain unknown for now. They were the most luxurious fingerprints ever taken. They were so pretty.
Gigantic fingerprints, too, with his hands.
Will he come in with like fake hands on? Yeah. like he's the wiener finger people from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Here, look at my hands now, huh? Bet Stormy wishes I was still around. His actions surrounding the 2020 electoral defeat are now focused on a separate federal investigation, and a Georgia prosecutor is in the final stage of investigating Mr. Trump's attempts to reverse the election. He's not going to leave the presidential race for this reason. The only way he can basically stave this off is by winning in 2024. Which, by the way, can I make this point? Secret Service, for God's sakes, protect Joe Biden, because I guarantee you, yeah, I'm a little concerned about what's going to happen in there. I'll just say that. All right, so there's that. Let's just enjoy that. Let's bask in the sun here. Oh, God. Yeah, you know what the closest they ever got to this before was? Harding. Harding was corrupt. Well, he died. He died in office. I think he died. Didn't he die with a mistress? I think he died with a mistress. The whole Teapot Dome scandal. These guys were taking leftover stuff from World War I and selling it. The guys would go on out and they would scout for like VA hospitals out on the West Coast. They'd find a location, then they themselves would go buy the land and sell it for a massive markup to the federal government. I mean, it was just corruption beyond corruption. And to my knowledge, it's the only time an actual cabinet member, maybe before Nixon, no, I'm not sure, maybe before Nixon, An actual cabinet member went to jail for that. I think was, his guy. He was the guy that was selling all the World War I leftover supplies off market and was pocketing the money. He fled to Europe. They had to extradite him back to the United States to face trial. Warming yourself up on these late March days, huh? Roasty toasty. That orange, I think we should take a look at the orange alert on Donald Trump. Oh, looking like circus peanut now. Okay. He's upset. We're going to see if we can reach Orange Julius later on by the end of the day. Grr. Oh, I bet you there is not a safe ketchup bottle or hamburger in his presence right now. It's going to be that whatever room he's in is going to be marked up with food and ketchup like crazy.
Well, it's going to something happened in that room. Yeah. With all the red markings on the wall from the ketchup. Yeah.
Yo, Augustus Gloop, calm your ass down, okay? We're happy because he's going to be indicted. Yay! Yay! Feeling good in the neighborhood. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Why has no one called him Augustus Gloop until now? There you go. I'm taking credit for it. Trademark. Let's get into a story here. Obviously, this was interesting because it was kind of a minor story, but then I kept saying to myself, this sounds much more major than it is, and clearly than it did become a much more larger story. Raymond, Minnesota. Residents of the small west central Minnesota town were woken in the middle of the night by first responders pounding on doors and cell phones warning them to evacuate after a BNSF train carrying ethanol and corn syrup derailed and caught fire. I don't know if either one of those, both of those are going to burn like freaking crazy and hot too. Flames and thick smoke billowed into the air as about 8 cars jumped the track on the west side of the Candiota County community of about 110 miles west of the Twin Cities after 1 a.m. We take full responsibility or full accountability for this, said Katie Farmer, president and chief executive of the Fort Worth, Texas-based railroad. We work very hard at prevention these types of incidents at BNSF. 1 second here, pardon me. Gotta scroll through my briefs here. Sorry. Railroad officials had yet to pinpoint what led to the derailment, and a spokesperson from the Federal Railroad Administration said an investigation could take months. Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board were headed to the scene on Thursday. Accident investigations were considerably at length and duration, but in general, we seek to complete them within 6 months, said Warren Flateau, a Railroad Administration Deputy Director of Public Affairs. No one was hurt when the 117 J-Tank cars left the tracks, but did not rattle the nerves of many residents in town, about 800 people who by midday were being allowed back to return home. First responders from the at least 15 agencies rushed to the scene and went door to door to tell residents living in the city they needed to leave the area. We knew very quickly that what was on the train, said Candiota County Sheriff Eric Tollefson. We knew there was no great hazard, but we recommended evacuation. Area was half mile from the fire, and that's all of Raymond. And what part of the problem you have out there is it's kind of one. I think I'm presuming most of the snow, because you get out to the west, the snow is not nearly as thick, and it's probably been melting to a point. But I mean, obviously, you could have fire jump pretty quick if it gets any kind of wind. Others were awoken by cell phone notifications with messages to evacuate to Princeburg, a small town about 8 miles south. I was in a fog. I didn't know what the heck was going on, said Pam Haugen, 67, who lives next to El Kaba Apartments in Raymond. I was afraid we were going to lose our apartment with an explosion and all the fumes. I didn't want to start all over again with all my belongings. Darwin Haida, 81, says she lived in the Raymond house since 1965, doesn't remember seeing anything like this before. Even in the 24 years as a volunteer firefighter, he said he couldn't smell any fumes, but the fire lit up the night sky. You could see the actual flames well above the tree line. More than 150 residents took refuge at the Central Minnesota Christian School in Princeburg, including Haugen and 4 others who were taken there by ambulance because they did not have a vehicle to drive. John DeGroot, superintendent of the school, said he wasn't expected that many people and set up only a few tables, but as more people arrived, he put up more tables, mats, and provided coffee to pass the time. Some played games, A nearby church will serve breakfast to about 100 people that were still at the school in the hours after the derailment. Very nice of you guys. Absolutely top notch. I'm proud of how our community banded together. DeGroot said, we are blessed with the blessings. Everyone got along. The Red Cross was also on the scene, as was Governor Walz, who said he was impressed by the sense of calm and order. He also praised BNSF for the quick response. It should not go unnoticed that Burlington Northern, with this response we expect, the governor said during a news conference about touring the wreckage. Be honest with people. Come out here and tell us what happened. The train was carrying product from Chicago-based ADM's corn processing facility in Marshall, Minnesota. When it left the tracks, 4 cars carrying corn syrup and 4 carrying ethanol tipped over. I guess I'm a little concerned about the ethanol. Did it leak into the ground? Hopefully not. Train cars continue to leak Monday, and cleanup began with the ground frozen. The liquid should be able to burn off without anything getting into the water supply, the governor said. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency said staff were on the scene, evaluating the scope, scale, and impacts of the air and water surfaces. Minnesota Pollution Control Agency spokesperson said Andrea Kornoyer. She also said the agency will advise necessary environmental cleanup measures. So, first of all, solid job by everyone involved, all the first responders, the communities coming together, helping out the people. And that's great. I am a believer that state government should get out there and help you as much as you can. I am 100%. Do you want us out there? Because there's a lot of people in this area. Now, and there are going to be people out there like, man, this is a little, kind of a little, Is it out of bounds to remind people that these counties, many of these counties, which are frankly counties that need the tax base of the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area to sustain their own budgets because they can't raise enough tax revenue to keep their own services going. They need Minneapolis-St. Paul taxpayer dollars. They ignorantly say, you keep your Twin Cities noses out of our business. Bing! They do that all the freaking time. They scream, get out of here. We know better. Well, now you have a crisis. Now you have a real serious problem. I am consistent. I don't care if a tornado hits the most liberal part of the state or the most conservative part of the state. For goodness sakes, get up there and help the people. That has been my standard. Republicans, we talked about how they got to a point where they looked, well, how did that area vote? Oh, they voted for the Democrats. Well, we can't help you. And we've had a lot of Republicans talk about, keep your noses out of our business. Well, fine. Do you not want us to come and help you out? I'm going to presume there's been some damage to roads. There's been some damages to the railroad tracks. There's been some damages to at least maybe probably power lines, telephone lines, stuff like that. Do we still have telephone lines? Wait a second here. We got to get Ma and Pa Engel on the old crank handle. No, I don't know if they have telephone lines, power lines. We'll go power lines. God forbid. It sounds like it's controlled. Governor Walz out there touring the damage. Hopefully nothing gets into the water supply. But if there's a concern about that, I'm presuming you would like state help to make sure that stays safe. Or do you not? Because when you sit there and say, as you take more money from the Twin Cities metro area than you put into the state coffers, and scream, keep your noses out of our business. Now, my guess is most of the people out there go, we're hurting. We need help. And that's great. By all means, it's not great you're hurting, but it's great we can get out there and get you help. But tomorrow, after we do come on out and help you, after we do come on out and put out the state aid there, are you going to sit there and say, are you going to put out some sort of false narrative of we pulled ourselves up by our own bootstraps? Or are you going to say, well, thank gosh the state was here to help us recover from this? And then the next time when there's a problem in the state, are you going to say, well, keep your nose out of our business? Or are you going to say, you know what? I used to think that there was no value here. If the state came in, helped out, I've been proven wrong. Let's go out and help other communities as they need it. The point of this is not to shame people. Well, to a little bit, yeah. It's to point out that if you're going to adopt such absolutely outrageous standards towards how you're going to treat other people, and how you're going to react to people who are helping you out on a daily basis, then when you need real help, act like we've never told you guys you were horrible. No, you do all the time, all the freaking time. And yet here we are, still doing the Christian thing and helping you out. Have no problem with that. Just maybe, it's time for you to step back a little bit and say, well, maybe we shouldn't be like this towards these people that have been helping us out as much as they have. Needless to say, regardless if you say it or not, get the people the help that they need, by all means. That's a basic function of city government, county government, state government, and federal government. Helping the people in need when they need it, by all means. 952-946-6205. Let's take a break. I got to come back. We'll go through the Lazaro trial stuff. I'll give you an update on the Twins. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. We have families waiting for a car. You know, over 85% of unemployed are successful in finding and keeping a job if they have dependable transportation. A car plus a job equals a life changed. 612-919-5526. We have families waiting for a car. 919-5526 or autotech.org.
This is Ross Stadheim, partner at MJSB Employment Justice. When you've been wronged at work or something just doesn't feel right, it's hard to know what to do next. Our firm can help. We pride ourselves on communication and listening to our brave clients to obtain their own brand of justice. When you hire MJSB Employment Justice, you're not just a number. You're a valued client who will be represented by one of our experienced and accomplished partners every step of the way. That's our promise.
Be heard. You deserve better. Contact us today at mjsbjustice.com.
Would you let animals pick your insurance? Do you really need to experience mayhem to get the best rates? Or how about a celebrity quarterback or fake university saving you money? There's a lot of marketing stunts when it comes to insurance, but what you really need is someone looking out for you. Call Array Insurance, and they will work hard to find you the best insurance coverage and rates. To avoid gimmicks, call Cheryl at Array, 763-504-3067, or arrayinsurance.com. Array Insurance, working hard for you.
It's an absolute must for any true foodie. Vinaigrette at 50th and Xerxes in South Minneapolis offers premium oils and vinegars for the most discriminating of tastes. This is Sarah Piepenberg, owner of Vinaigrette. We bottle on-site, there's no guesswork, and you get to taste test each and every oil and vinegar we offer. Our direct relationship with the growers ensures an uncompromised level of satisfaction. When you need to know you're cooking with the finest ingredients, first contact the independently owned Vinaigrette, 50th and Xerxes in South Minneapolis. Online at vinaigrettemn.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. Once again, breaking news. Donald Trump's been indicted. And the Twins are up 2-0 over Kansas City right now. I guess that's, I shouldn't bury the lead. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. So I'm going to go, first of all, Lou Ragoose over at 11. Let's go through his, because he did the time. I love this. I love the Twitter timeline of how things went today. Lazaro back on the witness stand this morning, and his lawyer Daniel Gertz, G-E-R-D-T-S, is doing some redirect examination, going over the stuff that he came up during the cross-examination yesterday. He started with the text message, I used Gisela/recruiters/SA. Gertz is having Lazaro say the slash represents and, meaning separate. So Gisela and recruiters. Wow, this is not going well for you, man. I'm just saying. Plus, Lazaro said recruiters refers to agency Lazaro belonged to that sets up dates, not pre-pandemic, a matchmaker service, not Gisela. Regarding the photo of the three girls face down on Lazaro's bed, which, to my knowledge, it sounded like Lazaro was pretending that photo didn't exist until his buddy produced the photo that he had sent him. And so now, regarding the photo of the three girls face down on Lazaro's bed, Lazaro specified that the girls are clothed despite the black redaction bar from the prosecutor placed over the lower sections of their body. Regarding the video of the teens in lingerie, Lazaro specifies that that the one with the cash tucked in like a stripper is 18 plus in age. The 16-year-old victim B is also in the video. Wow. Gertz asked Lazaro about his former friend and current enemy, Charles Bittman. Lazaro says he is a former employee who was terrible at his job, slept in at 10 a.m. every day. Got even worse after Lazaro was arrested. He made fraudulent title to TL property and sold it illegally. Lazaro says his company has an active litigation against Charles Bittman. He stole $400,000 from me. Fair to say you're not getting along with him. I have not spoken to him since I turned him in, so that's a fair characterization. Gertz finishes, and now Medina Williams is doing cross. Now, it should be mentioned in regards to Bittman, I'm not saying that he's not guilty of some crimes and that there's going to be a litigation there, but what he provided were text messages, photos, and stuff. And at no point does it sound like Lazaro said those were made up. He's acknowledging that those are legitimate texts. He's attacking the person that gave them to the federal government. Melinda Williams is doing a recross. She's going back to the text message exchange between Bittman, pointing out he claimed on direct examination he doesn't use the word recruiter, but you are using it, aren't you? You told him Gisela was your recruiter, didn't you? I don't remember her saying that specifically, said Lazaro. Regarding Lazaro and Bittman, you trusted him with your deepest, darkest secrets. I wouldn't say that. These aren't your deepest, darkest secrets? No, we're in federal court right now, so... You told him about your exploits? I don't have exploits. Going back to the Jeffrey Epstein photo and text, that's Jeffrey Epstein. Lazaro, I believe so. And she asks, R.I.P. my brother. I don't know if I was referring to Charles. Well, is Charles dead? No. Wow. Lazaro is done testifying. The defense has called another witness, Paul Baker from Springfield, Illinois. He was a character witness for Lazaro. They met 15 years ago on an online Amtrak forum. Both are rail enthusiasts. What's your opinion of Mr. Lazaro for generosity? I think he's always been very generous to people who help him. Character witnesses in real life can't go into nearly as any of the stuff they do in movies, can't refer to specific acts he's done. Another character witness now, Joseph Frank from Rapid City, South Dakota. Lazaro hired him to fix a desk broken when Lazaro moved there. They struck up a friendship. He's very generous. The defense rests his case as well. The prosecutor has no rebuttal witnesses. The evidence portion of the trial is over. Closing arguments will start tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. The jury will begin deliberating. So the lawyers will spend a little time today without the jury hammering out some legal issues. The exhibits that were used here, he also has those from Lazaro's condo, including a layout of the bar area. Here's Lazaro's safe, stacks of money, the firearms that was handled by some of his teenage visitors. The entrance to the living room of Lazaro's condo, which you can see there. Lazaro's bathroom, a photo of much talked about in the TV mirror, about TV in the mirror there. He also has vape pens that he gave some of the girls, his infamous Ferrari, which was confiscated by the government, and his bedroom. They have all the evidence and the photos there as well. Yeah. Let me also mention here, there were some things in the Star Tribune story here that were a little different. Basically, Lazaro, once rising Republican donor in Minneapolis, standing trial, 1 count of conspiracy to commit child sex trafficking, minor, and 5 counts of child sex trafficking. He was beginning federal custody since August 2021. Lazaro and his defense team trained most of their focus Thursday on new evidence delivered by Bittman, the estranged business associate who turned over the government's photos of the minor teen sent to him by Lazaro. Bittman also shared WhatsApp messages between the two men. Gertz at one point referred to a photo of the 3 young women, one of whom was alleged victim was 16 at the time, lined up face down on Lazaro's bed. They wore lingerie. Prosecutors redacted the photo. Do they have clothing on? Nobody's naked. Nobody's naked. This is their defense. Wow. One of the repeat references during the trial of Lazaro serving underage girls high-proof grain alcohol, Gertz prompted his client to agree with a smirk that many alcoholic beverages, including beer or wine, were fermented from grain. This is their defense. Under cross-examination later, Lazaro conceded that grain alcohol such as Everclear, which can range from alcohol content from 60 to 95% by volume, was stronger than beer. Lazaro disputed testimony from witnesses that one alleged victim had become so intoxicated that Lazaro had to roll her body over for sex. Lazaro described Bittman as somebody he hired to work for him. Needless, I think that's, you can see where this is going. I think the Bittman evidence was devastating for his case. That came through yesterday afternoon. I mean, if, like I said, and we said this yesterday, if you're starting the day saying, hey, I got a chance. I mean, it was, as Jack said yesterday, it was already going to be tough for them to basically say, sure, I had sex with them and sure, I gave them money, but those two things had nothing to do with each other. Especially when you have someone who's already flipped on him saying it did have something to do with him. But to start the day out thinking you got a chance of maybe pulling this off to get to the point where you're saying, you know, hey, I don't really admire Jeffrey Epstein. You know, that's I'm not a witch moment. I mean, seriously, you have really closing arguments tomorrow. I don't know when closing arguments get done. Would I be surprised if there's a verdict tomorrow? Nope. Might even have it in time for the show. Speaking of which, hey, Donald Trump's been indicted by a Manhattan grand jury. Former President Trump has been indicted by a grand jury impaneled by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Under seal, but it's about the hush money payment. He's probably not going to go to jail, but he's at the same time, I can only imagine. Oh my God, he just must be livid right now. Twins leading 2-0 over the Royals on opening day. Go baseball. We are back on a Friday. Native Roots Radio in the 6 o'clock hour. Till tomorrow. See ya.
Winter is here, and there's a good chance your home isn't being heated efficiently. And it's likely because of air sealing and insulation problems. Inadequate attic insulation